Hello and welcome back to AI Ethics Now. My name is Tom Ritchie, and today I'm really pleased to be joined by Billy Bowman. Billy is an AI director and founder of Billy Bowman AI Productions, whose work sits at the intersection of artificial intelligence and creative production. He's one of a new generation of practitioners using AI tools to reshape how commercial content is made most visible through high-profile campaigns, including work with Fiverr, a platform built on the labor of the very freelance creatives whose roles are now being disrupted by tools like this. Billy, hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, really happy to be here, and that's a great intro. So thank you for that.
No, great to have you. How you doing?
I'm all good here in rainy Stockholm, but we're approaching spring, so that feels really good.
That's great. No, good to hear. And hopefully the weather improves soon. I wonder, Billy, what brings you to this conversation on AI ethics, please?
Well, I suppose as a practitioner of the craft, the relative new emerging craft of what can be called, in Swedish we say a dear child has many names. So AI video, AI artist, AI video director. Titles doesn't mean so much to me, but what I do at a daily basis is that we produce branded content, so commercials, advertising, social media, ads for brands. And we have done also music videos in the past for Taylor Swift, like an activation campaign, Louis Capaldi, as well as we're getting some narrative opportunities now for stuff I can't talk about. But that's basically what I do on a day-to-day basis. But I guess as a practitioner of the craft with a lot of insights into the intricacies of this industry, and as a teacher as well, I teach creative AI. We know it's Europe's only program, but we think it might be the world's still. It's a 1-year program in the classroom where I teach. I have a 3-week tenure every year where I teach these tools to the next generation of creatives. So I have a lot of insight into this. So happy to talk about it here today.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think it's really interesting that you teach this as well and you have that opportunity to kind of share what you've learned and how that changes year to year as well. The question I wanted to ask is the Fiverr campaign is a high profile example of AI in creative production. How do you think about the impact on the freelance workforce that it's built around?
Right. So it's a fair question for sure. The ironic layer or the meta layer of it that there's very little AI, at least in my campaign. It was a real sign built underneath the Hollywood sign in the iconic location in LA, right? But the point of it was to put the spotlight on creators like myself and others on the AI video hub on Fiverr who produce, branded content or music videos or anything basically. So, I mean, my honest advice to any freelancer is that you could just do more with less. You can provide so much value to brands, music labels, big brands, small brands, restaurants, mom and pop shops, startups. It doesn't really matter. There's a insatiable need for video content in the ever-evolving landscape of TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn even. A hell of a lot is needed still to stand out in an ever more competitive advertising landscape. So that would be my encouragement for anyone. Just play around with the tools and see what you can do and see how it can help you do more with less, basically.
I think it's a really interesting point you make about creativity. And it's something that when I speak to my students on the module that we teach, creativity comes up a lot in each of the weeks. And students speak about how they see the impact of AI, both positively and negatively on that. And we have so many questions about what is creativity if it's being developed by AI. Is it our creativity if we're using that tool? And I think that there's lots of talk about AI democratizing creativity for the general public. But I wonder, who do you think actually benefits and who is getting left behind?
Oh, it's a big one. But I guess maybe if we start with the term democratizing creativity, that is actually wrong or it's misleading. It's a bit too ambiguous. I would reframe it as that it's AI creative tools are removing the barriers and the barrier to entry for creatives to play at the big leagues. I mean, making a feature film or a short film or an episodic series or whatever you want. So who gets left behind? If we do a bit of like real talk, I mean, my parents ran an advertising agency. They're now retired, but my entire childhood. And they saw the disruptive moments that brought the advertising industry forward. My dad was an apprentice in the 60s and 70s and became an art director. He was gluing typography on a goddamn board, and sending that to a typesetter and all these things, that now feel antiquated and just so old. Then in the early 90s, late 80s, there was the digital revolution of computers. And at each of these times, these disruptive times, I mean, Photoshop was like, there's a really funny clip if you Google like American morning show Photoshop in the 80s. You can find a really funny clip where they talk about like this new tool Photoshop allows anyone to put the face of anyone anywhere. And it's really scary and you cannot trust your eyes anymore. And it's just like, we've heard this before, everything that we're talking now on AI. So in the 80s or whatever, we're sitting there, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to do whatever, I don't know, analog or glue. I mean, that's your prerogative. Go do that. That's absolutely fine. But you might risk being, especially as a service provider and a freelancer, where you have to constantly be relevant in the marketplace, right? Like, that's what we do. It's not like a human right to be a freelancer. Like, it's really stressful and a lot of pressure to deliver or run any business for that matter. So just like being adaptive, being agile, being curious, I think. So anyone who is not those things, I am really sorry, but there might be a really tough time. I'm so over trying to convince people to do this. I've been doing this since mid 2022. I was playing with AI. It's like, okay, this is going to go somewhere. This is going to change the game, like totally. So and in the beginning, I was trying to like, look, there's so much fun stuff to do here. You can do anything, like a website with floating sneakers or whatever you want to do. And, you know, it's no, I don't want it. It's immoral. It's illegal. It's theft. It's this, it's that. Okay, well, okay. Like, you do you. You can shoot everything analog with your camera. Just go ahead, do that. Cameras are still being sold. And I'm going to go off on the last tangent on this question. And that's that it's not about AI or, it's AI and. There's every opportunity to combine AI with other tools. So you can combine it with cameras. You can combine it with VFX. You can combine it with collage making, papercraft, claymation, anything. Like it's an accelerator and, as far as I'm concerned, an augmenter, but rooted in you as the human creative. You can, of course, copy things. You can copy with Photoshop, a Xerox machine, and with AI. No, it's never been easier to copy, but those people are rapidly being called out. I have no interest in copy anything. I'm inspired by a lot of things, and there's a fine line, and we can talk about what's inspiration and what's copying. But yeah, just to go back to the original question, those who get left behind, well, that might be the rigid ones, the ones who are not curious, who have made up their mind not to even test out this technology. To them, I say, absolutely fine, but you risk being caught left behind. And that's your prerogative as an adult to make that decision.
And there are really interesting parallels if you look back in history as well. Of the Luddite movement is a great example where people push back against technology and they see it as problematic, and exactly the same challenges that we're seeing presented around this broad application of AI today has been said about the internet, as you mentioned. It was said about the development of the computer. The typewriter, even in the context of education, was seen as it would destroy education because people wouldn't write things anymore. And I think my background is as a historian, and it's interesting to look back and see those patterns, those kind of waves that we do see land. And one of the big challenges I think people don't tend to realize is the impact of creative destruction, and actually that creative destruction leads to jobs being removed, but new ones being created as a result of technology. I think one of the things I found interesting is that compared to those technologies, which were tools that we would access, AI does feel slightly different because AI is being trained on human data. One of the challenges that comes with these models is that a lot of that data is being scraped or taken perhaps without consent or compensation. And I wonder, how do you sit with that challenge that comes with the way that these models are trained?
Sure, I mean, that's the very common, what do you say, detractor argument, if you'd call it that, from some of my many debates on social media about this. But it's a fair point, and how I would address it is, a web browser also scrapes and looks at the internet. You cannot just create images with it. So obviously, looking at or compiling images is not the issue. It's the fact that you can, to some extent, copy things, pixel by pixel, copy things. So AI models, I would argue, are transformative when you use them in the right way, when you use them to put something into the world that did not exist before by combining references. Because honestly, my mind is also a diffusion model. I am only the product by everything I have ever seen at museums, in art school. I have a bachelor in arts. I was trained on the classics, on the fundamentals of color theory, of the golden ratio, the rule of thirds in photography. I am a massive lover of cinema, so picking up angles or how Tarantino does this or how he combines music with that. This is inspiration to me, and putting things together in a new way with my own point of view is, to me, not copying, but rather paying homage to everything that came before me and everything that I admire, to do something new with it. So I think it's a bit rigid to say AI is only copying. Well, it can be if you're sitting there prompting Pikachu. Well, yeah, sure. I can also put a comic book into a Xerox machine. I have also now copied. Great. Okay. I'm not interested in that. And to the ones who do, I say, boo, thumbs down, bad, don't do it. It sucks. It's boring. It's derivative. There's Without a doubt, I have seen so many incredible AI short films that are profoundly weird, beautiful, scary, crazy, funny, or even commercials and films that are making ideas possible that weren't before. And that is not copying, that is bringing something new to the world. So it is much more complex than this. And the last point I would say for anyone who's interested in this topic, go watch the YouTube documentary, Everything is a Remix. Amazing 1 hour documentary. And the latest version from 2023 has a AI part in it, which talks about this, that everything is a remix of something else. And that's how creativity never exists in a vacuum. We're all a product of our influences in a way. To answer your very, very original question, AI is different, of course, than Photoshop. AI has never happened before. There are no perfect metaphors, but we have to work with what we have. So that's why we often talk about Photoshop or people destroying the spinning Jenny or whatever. So we have to have historical comparisons to put any type of context. With that said, I do agree AI is different. And we so early that we don't know where this is going to go. That I'm also very humble in that I don't have a crystal ball. I can only see what's happening right now in the industry here and now.
And I take your point on that. And I wonder, though, if you saw that a model was being trained, say, on your work without your permission, would that change the way that you think about it?
No, unless the output consistently would look exactly as regardless of what anyone is prompting or trying to make. If it consists, because that's also James Cameron's point, the big, director of Titanic, Avatar, Aliens, one of the most profound, who is very AI friendly, so to say. He was at some point on the board of the biggest UK-based AI called Stability AI, where he talks about we have to get away from what the models are trained on and what the output looks like. If the output looks like everything else, that it's a blatant copy of whatever it might be, Star Wars, Pikachu, well, then we have a problem. But we can already now observe, at least to me, that it's absolutely not. That it's what we call transformative when we talk about diffusion models and how they work and how you can endlessly combine remixes, your weird brain drawings, anything to make these new things. So that's why I would say I would have no problem anyone, because every Google product is trained on YouTube. Welcome to reality, folks. Like, it's already happened. Like, AI at some point is going to be trained on the world. What are you going to do then? This mindset, the race is already over as far as I'm concerned. Like, yep, that's going to happen. It's going to be trained on the world. Then what? I don't know. Resist that tidal wave. You're not. It's not going to work. Is my kind of real talk pragmatism there. If that's moral or ethical, we could talk about that. And I'm very trying to be positive. Like, what can we do as individual creators to enrich our lives and make this better? Because you could be doom and gloom all day. I'm also so over that. Like, okay, go do that then. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
And I think it's a good point. There are, a lot of potential ethical questions that we could ask. There's questions of the environmental impact as well that these tools can have. But I think for the sake of this discussion, I do like that we're focusing on the impact on the individuals who are doing those roles. And one of the questions that I know I'm thinking of a particular student of mine who is doing a degree in creative design. They have raised a number of times when we talk about the use of AI in this type of work about the inability to access or afford these tools. So really a question of equity, I suppose. They've also mentioned about what they do if their skills don't necessarily transfer to these tools because of the type of thing that they create. So with that said, I wonder what responsibility do AI directors such as yourself have for those who can't access them and whose skills can't necessarily transfer into, therefore they struggle to become part of this new world that you're alluding to?
Right. I mean, that's a very poignant question. I'm going to try to, compartmentalize that and to divide it up. I'm very much an individualist. I don't necessarily think I have much responsibility to anyone at all, besides my immediate family. But I do want to be a force of good. I am an educator, so I'm trying, again, to have my positive hat on and see how we can do more with less. Like I said, whenever I'm in the classroom and talking to students, teaching them, look what you can do, and just showing them and seeing, also talking about the opportunities I get to work with some of the biggest brands in the world and film and music video and all this crazy stuff. But going back to who can afford this? Well, design tools have never been free. At some point, my parents used to pay something like £2,000 a year for Photoshop. It used to cost a hell of a lot of money. There's no such thing as free lunch. There's probably never been more free stuff than there are today, because what market tends to do is that price goes down over time. A TV was much more expensive 30 years ago than they are today. Same with the computers, same with everything. So I think, look, on the equity part, we're getting there. Is it a perfect world? No. It's a little bit more complex than that, I'd argue. And to be fair, an AI subscription of, I don't know, $20, hell of a beats, I don't know, an Arri Alexa camera for $100,000. Plus, don't even get me started on a live action film set, crew, gaffer, lighting, mic setup, and all these things. So there's disruption there, but enablement here as well. It's super disruptive and Wild West right now. It's happening so many things, and it's really changing a lot of the old legacy workflows or barriers to entry. And some love it, me. Others are not so excited. I guess it depends on which side of that gate you're standing. If you were already in the upstairs nice room with all the comes with it, well, maybe it sucks, but I also think it's pretty cool.
And yeah, I think it's really interesting. We talk a lot about the global south and the impact that AI will have and the challenges we have around digital divide. And you've touched on this point about equity as well. A question though, you've said previously that we aren't spending less on budget, we're spending more on imagination. What do you think that means for the people whose labor is being used to fill that budget?
Yeah, that's become one of my favorite kind of quotes because it reframes the conversation about clients just want to spend less here. But I'm like, but look, we can spend more here. And what it means for the labor, well, either it means we can labor less and do more, or that we can just, I don't know, labor in a different way and make even more. Again, my creative glass is half full every time of the day. If you just want to, how you look at this, regardless if you're working in a company, if you're a freelancer or wherever you might be, again, you can just do more with less. So some of the films we do, it's so difficult to even start to, okay, we would need a soundstage, film crew, all these things. Sure, those people were not employed, but we employed other people. And the question isn't also if we would employ these hypothetical people, we would not do it at all is the alternative. The alternative is not that because we don't have those budgets. I'm not in Hollywood. I don't know. Like, I don't come from even commercial directing. I'm just a weird kind of fashion and design and tech and film lover guy who ended up doing this just because I was curious. And now this is my life and this is my profession. I did one of my first music videos I directed with AI was for a little guy called Fred Durst from a band called Limp Bizkit. And he was doing a feature with a guy called Hardy, which is this kind of rock country guy. And that was the blessed year of 2024, feels like an eternity ago. The concept was about them as children going around with this box of souls. It's called Soul for Sale. And we see them progress through their childhood, adolescent, and then at the end, there's this like crazy box of souls flying away because I got a soul for sale is the chorus. Like the alternative was never to go out and film that. The alternative, there would be no music video. Do you understand? So we're not, as far as I'm concerned at least, someone could maybe argue against me, we're not like taking away this thing over here. We're filling the gap where nothing existed before. So we're bringing more art, music videos. Some people might hate commercials, but advertising is an industry. We're creating more commercials and different type of content that goes out into the world. Does this make sense? Kind of the argument I'm trying to do. We're, again, coming back to more. We're doing more. And that usually for an economy, that's good if we zoom out and just look at being productive and GDP and all those things. But I'll stop there not to go too long, tangent-wise.
No, and I think it's a really interesting point that you say it's not a case of we're taking away from creators, we're just actually working in a different space. That's something that I think can get overlooked. And it links into my next question, which perhaps the conceit of the question is wrong. But I was going to ask, where do you think the line sits between AI as a tool for creators and AI as a replacement for them? But obviously, there's almost like a third element here that we're talking about of it's working in a new space. But I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Where do you think that line sits?
Yeah, I mean, we've had companies come to us. Can you help us create a content system that can spit out like 50 ads a day or something? And we're like, nope, not interested. Like that's not what I want to do at all. First of all, because it's not going to be good. Like there's no human input anywhere. Again, we are storytellers as a being, as a civilization. We love to tell stories in different ways, if that's branded or narrative or document, whatever it is. Like we love to still tell stories. So as long as that's intact, I think we are on the right side of whatever we're trying to achieve. So I'm not here for like, let's automate out creatives. I mean, there's CEOs who want that. I absolutely know it. Yeah, maybe not a great idea because then you get into this kind of Andrew Chang argument. If there's no one left to purchase anything because everyone is out of a job, how is the economy supposed to work? If we take that perspective. So back to my original point, if as long as humans are telling stories and we have a human intention, art direction, writing, copywriting, narrative writing, whatever it is, although we're using these emerging tools that we can do crazy things with in a new way, then for me, we're on the right side of the fence of your question, basically.
And it's an interesting one because I think you mentioned about stories, and all humans, wherever they are in the world, every culture uses stories in some way. And that evolutionary aspect of ourselves, it feels like if AI can be, kind of to your point, used to support and enhance that in a way that the printing press did, that you could see this growing change in how ultimately the biggest questions we have around AI is, what does it mean to be human? I like what you're saying about AI is there to support our storytelling, because we all tell stories. That's what we do, and I can see that being a positive future. However, with that said, I wonder, where do you think we are on the spectrum of AI as tools for creators and AI as replacement for them? So you mentioned that you know that there are some COOs who'd happily just automate out those creatives. Where do you think we are currently on that spectrum?
Oof, I mean, all over the place. Probably, some are vastly into the automation thing, and I mean, maybe some things deserve to be automated. I don't know, like submitting receipts, for example, or I don't know, something else that is actually better for a machine to do. I mean, today machines take care of our agriculture, which is great. We can then feed more people. Like a lot of these debates sometimes goes down to like, what do you say? Human labor is always good. Well, no, because at some point we all used to work in agriculture just to support ourselves, pre-industrial revolution. So no, but like the discussion becomes very muddled because you have to, at least I think we have to compartmentalize and separate. Like, okay, creative work is one thing, film is another thing, design is another thing, agriculture is another thing, healthcare is another thing, and they're all impacted by AI, and it's coming in everywhere, and everyone is kind of screaming at each other from all these different points of view at the same time. It gets super muddled and convoluted, and no one is really even talking about the same thing. So that's why I try to reframe it for creative work, because that's what I do. Happy to talk about all this other stuff that I think is highly interesting as well. But where we are, again, where I try to be is to be super intentional. I put so much of myself into when I prompt and what I want. Like what I want, that's the most frustrating thing of AI, getting what you want from it. I have a very specific picture in my head. What I want for this soda commercial or whatever it is this type of light, and it's this soft anamorphic lens with shallow depth of field and just light and hitting the key light over shadow. And that's what I want. And then it's like the frustrating process of trying to get there with AI. And again, the alternative would be not be that I took someone's job by getting that. The alternative is it wouldn't happen at all. I actually welcome the fact what's happening now, to be specific, with Cdance and the Chinese models that are trying to put in so much guardrails that you can't prompt Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise fighting. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Like that already exists. That will force I think the negative part of the AI community, because God knows there are people who's just like, Pikachu and Star Wars, like, go make your own stories. Go make your own stories, please. The problem with Hollywood is that we're in the sequel paradigm. It's only sequels. It's no new stories ever coming in, or very, very, very seldomly. And when they do, some of them are an absolute smash hit. When there's different occasions of this, like, but they're so rare if you zoom out and see where it's just like sequels bonanza, because whatever, we could talk about that we're stagnant as a culture, whatever that means, why we're in sequels. But for now, when we can take anything we can make, and you choose to do Pikachu and Star, I get it, because most people love to hear stories and ingest stories, and we work as a biological being that way. But most people are not storytellers in the sense that they are fundamentally creative and have stories inside of them. It's a craft, and I think it's probably also nature and nurture, how you are as just a person. So I understand that people I want to make Star Wars and Pikachu. Okay, great. But now we kind of have gotten that out of our system. We know it can be done. It bores me to tears. I don't want to see it. I immediately click away. I don't want to see fat Harry Potter. It's so boring. I cannot. That actually reaffirms my point. Most people are not storytellers, because if they were, we would see original stories, not fat Harry Potter. So it's good that guardrails are coming into place, that AI is more responsible in terms of IP rehashing. So we are on the right side. Some of us, there's also a lot of bad stuff happening, without doubt. Internet and Instagram is full of it.
Yeah, of course. And those bad things happened before AI became popular again in late 2022. Question I haven't asked you, but it's very, very difficult. If I said define creativity, that's very, very difficult to be able to do. And I wonder, though, with all of that said, Billy, what steps do you think we can take to ensure a more positive future with AI, please?
Sure. I mean, I'd love to answer what is creativity, but that will probably go out of time. What positive steps can we take? To be really, really concrete and like pragmatic, I think there's a couple of things we can do for anyone using AI tools. This comes back to what I said, just be inspired, but don't copy. Like I nag on this every single day in our studio, what we do and how we take steps to do that. That can be stuff like there's a framework called FAIR, so FAIR, FAIR, which basically is do not prompt in the style of Steven Spielberg, or do not prompt creature like Pikachu. Like, use your goddamn imagination. If you want something like Pikachu, or you just love that it's a yellow little thing, well, try to describe it with your own words then and come up with something new. And in the process of doing that, you'll probably will end up with something more, interesting than Pikachu already exists. Go make your own creature. I love the quote by a fashion designer, a Japanese guy called Yoji Yamamoto, who says, in the beginning, you copy, but in that copy, you find yourself. And this is true, I think, for almost anything. So it's okay to maybe be inspired, and there's a fine line between copying, but have this kind of fair framework in your mind. Don't copy, don't use maybe directors' names in your prompts. Don't say in the style of, I don't know, Tarantino or whatever. Just try to use your own words when you describe things. I want to say have your own point of view. That takes a long time to develop as a creative, but it still needs to be done for anyone. We in our studio, again, to be super pragmatic, concrete, are using an enterprise license with Magnific, which is an AI third-party aggregator. And what that means is that we have commercial rights to use everything. A lot of AI models, if you read the T&C, God knows you don't actually have rights to use this in a commercial setting. They also have a no training policy, meaning if brand X sends us their new product or sends pictures of the new product we're supposed to use in the commercial, with the no training policy, that data set, so the pictures of the product, just stays contained and it's not shared with any of the third-party API providers like Kling or Google or ByteDance, whatever it is. So it stays contained. And then we also have legal indemnification, meaning that we are legally protected if there would be some type of legal dispute over whatever. But we never copy anything, so that should be fine. But it's like a really nice business license. So that's, I think, also like a very not enough talked about aspect of the industry about staying compliant, basically, is what that means, the no training policy and using only what you have commercial rights to use, because people are just like downloading and local models and it's kind of all over the place. So we really put a lot of emphasis on amazing creative output, but also that it's compliant.
And I really like the idea of the problem isn't necessarily the tools, it's how we're using it. That's really what I've taken from what you're saying today, that it's the easy approach of just copying that can lead to these problems rather than actually saying, how can I tell the story that I want to tell? And you touched on earlier that not everyone is a storyteller, but that actually AI can perhaps help with that. But thank you, Billy. I think it's been a really interesting and challenging conversation around this question of AI and creative work and some of the challenges that we know come with it, particularly around the data that's used to train them and about the work that people do and the role of freelancers in that as well. Really, really interested to chat and hopefully speak to you again in future because this will continue to develop at the same time. But thank you so much for joining and have a lovely day. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Thanks so much, Billy.
Thanks so much. That was awesome.
Bye.